So you want to know how to get into medical school.
Wait, what? I already did medical school.
Did you?
I did.
Oh.
I did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
Welcome to Talking with Docs. I'm Dr. Paul Zalzo.
I'm Dr. Brad Wayne.
This is a different format. We're going to do it sort of like podcast style, but we want to discuss how to get into medical school in case you, your kid, your grandkid, or a friend of yours is thinking about going to medical school.
Okay, and we brought some guests.
Yeah, because we can't talk about it because it's been so long. How long ago did you go to medical school?
Like more than 25 years ago.
Like 1940?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time for us. So we brought some current medical students to discuss it. So here we have.
Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Izzy.
Okay, and you guys are in medical school.
So we just finished our first year of medical school.
Awesome.
Nice. Where was that?
It's at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland.
Awesome. Okay. So we want to pick your brains to figure out nowadays how to get into medical school. And the way we remember things is lists, right?
Yep.
We have like top 3, top 5, top 10's pushing it. But can you give us like the top 5 things you need to do to get into medical school?
For sure. So I think the first thing is to get good grades. So having an average like 3.0 to 4.0. And it really depends on the medical school that you want to get into. Different ones have different cutoffs, but getting those grades is really important.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so you need to get, so you got to think about this early,
right?
You got to think about this when you're in high school or maybe early university,
yep.
Thinking about getting good marks and researching your school that you want to go to or a few schools to figure out what their criteria are. Now, I heard that one of the schools is just going random now, just randomly accepting people.
I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch. They're not totally randomly accepting people. Like you put your name in a hat and then you get into medical school.
That's how I got in. Just walking down the street.
I think what they've done is they've made a minimum threshold, and then once you've reached that threshold, a certain number of people would be drawn out of a lottery rather than say they look at 1,000 that meet the criteria. Rather than interviewing the top 400, some of the other people would still get a lottery spot.
Okay, and I think that should offer comfort to people because what that's essentially saying is just because you didn't get into medical school this year doesn't mean you're not a good candidate. Because what this school is saying, there's so many good candidates we can't distinguish, so we're going to narrow it down to, I don't know, X number, and then do a lottery system from that.
Right.
So I think that's kind of encouraging news for people.
But I think the take-home message is definitely there's a lower or a minimum threshold for grades, and it's high, so you need to get good grades. That's the first basic thing. If you have horrible grades, unfortunately, I think medical school is probably not happening for you. So get good grades, study.
Why are you looking at me when you say that? Okay, that's number 1.
Okay.
So the second thing is making sure that you do the requirements. So there's the MCAT, which is the medical college's admissions test, a Casper test, and also a language proficiency test if you're an international student. And so there's cutoff scores for that as well that you need to meet in order to be even looked at as an applicant.
Okay, so standardized testing.
Right. What's the deal with the MCAT, Izzy?
MCAT is a long test. It pretty much, like, a lot of us kind of took, like, a good summer to study for it. You know, you really have to put in the time. And the test itself is, like, between 6 to 8 hours. It's in different sections. So it's really understanding the test itself and getting the kind of stamina to write a test that long because we haven't really done that throughout university. So yeah, just really, like, sitting down, especially for, like, a summer if you're working or working part-time, focusing on studying for that, set aside time for that, and then having the stamina to actually write the thing.
And there are books, courses, so you can prepare for this well in advance, at least know kind of what you're up against, and then a lot of the courses that you would take as prerequisites are covered in that as well. So that helps you guide, say in undergrad, you get some electives, you say, well, maybe I'm a little bit weaker in this area, I could take this essentially to do better on the MCAT.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like any test, you have to know the content, but then know how to do that test.
Right.
So there's whole videos, I'm sure we do a whole video on the MCAT.
And Casper, we didn't have back in the day. Essentially, it's a personality test, right?
I was a friendly ghost when I was applying to med school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually an interesting test. It was like nothing I'd ever really done before. So they kind of just like give you situations and you just kind of say how you would respond, how you would help people in the situation. Yeah. It's surprising. It was a refreshing test, I'd say. Yeah. Like it wasn't just numbers and, studying. It was more of just like be who you are and,
Hopefully you're a good person.
Yeah.
And if not, just be a good person for
That's
the
it.
Casper test.
There you go.
Now, different schools have different requirements. Not all schools require all the testing. Some schools require it, some schools don't. Some schools look at a certain portion of some of the tests and others. So that goes back to point 1. with the good grades and researching the different schools.
I think that's maybe should be even number one. Find out what it takes to get into medical school. You
Yeah.
don't want to do your undergrad and then go, oh wow, if I only would have taken chemistry,
Yeah.
then maybe I could have applied to medical school, and then it's too late or too
Yeah.
hard.
And every school has different criterias and regulations and things that they value on their interview.
Yeah.
It's definitely important to research what you need to do to get in before you even start.
Research that early. And that's hard to do. That's hard to tell a kid in high school to do, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell a kid in high school to do anything.
Wake up, clean your room,
Yeah.
learn how to get into med school, kid. Pick up your socks.
Yeah. Not in that order.
Okay, so number 3. What's number 3?
Number 3, I'd say, is research. So I kind of had the privilege to do a master's with a research component, and I think that can be, people kind of have misconceptions about research. They think it's, you know, you're going into a lab looking at little cells, and like some people, the wet lab stuff they might not like. But I had the privilege of doing a clinical research. So I was working with patients, you know, getting to see, working with a neurologist, so you can kind of get a better understanding of the medical field itself. So that was like a really good way for me to kind of dip my toe into the medical field, but then also get an understanding for research and the academic side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so incorporate research somehow into your training. I know, Megan, you did some research. You didn't do your master's, but you also did some research.
You don't have to like do a master's to do research. You can kind of do it on the side as well. So I got myself involved in screening different papers, doing data extraction, things like that, working towards systematic reviews, scoping reviews. So I was able to do it more remotely, which was great, especially during the pandemic. I was still able to do research. So yeah, there's definitely many opportunities in research. So yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4 is extracurriculars.
Okay.
So sports teams, clubs, like community volunteering. There's endless opportunities to build up some extracurriculars. And I think it's so important to choose quality over quantity when it comes to extracurriculars. So choosing just a few that you're like genuinely passionate about and things you actually want to do, rather than just doing superficially a bunch of different things, because that'll show in your application. And the whole point of doing extracurriculars is to kind of show who you are as a person and really build your story, right? And kind of show admissions or paint a picture of who you are to admissions, right?
And that makes sense to me, because I've done some stuff with medical school too, and you look and you see someone that has like 21-month involvements, like in the last month. It's like, this person filled out their application, realized, I got nothing for the extracurricular part, I better get some stuff in here.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that person, A, because it's kind of fake.
Yeah.
And B, because you want those benefits of the extracurricular activity itself. Like, you want to become a good person, you want to find out about medicine or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. You don't want to be an NPC.
NPC.
Non-player character. You know,
Okay.
in the video game, that guy that's walking through walls, walking into trees and stuff.
You don't want to be that person.
No, everyone has a story,
Yep.
and you just want to flesh it out. You want to be able to tell your story. You're the only person who can tell your story, right? And you want to be able to tell it right and recognize your story and choose your activities and things that sort of align and are part of the big picture that is you. And you have to feel comfortable talking about you, because you're going to be writing stuff out in your application and give it to people to read.
I would say the other thing to that point is that when you are in an interview, so say you're lucky enough to get an interview, they're going to ask you about that stuff, and it's going to become very obvious to the interviewer if your stuff's not important to you, or it was very superficial or whatever, or you did it like 3 hours once kind of thing.
Tell me about your hang gliding awards, Brad.
That's right.
Wow.
When I think that some of those kids in California, right, when they got into that, I think it was at USC or UCLA, and they said that they're a road crew and they're like famous kids of, and then eventually there's a big admissions scandal. So I think the truth will rise to the top eventually. So yeah, just be real.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, number 4. So let's go to number 5 then.
Number 5 is references. So this can be academic and non-academic. So kind of depends on the school. But for non-academic, that's where kind of also the extracurriculars come in. So, you know, if you're on a sports team, then you have your coach who's like gotten to know you as a person and can kind of speak to your character in that sort of setting. And then you can have your academic. So, you know, whether you've done research, your professor that you worked with, or even just in your classes, which I know we kind of talked about, like, especially in a science undergrad, your first couple years, it's like 600 kids in a class.
They don't know your name.
They don't know your name. They don't even know your face. So especially in the later years, it's getting to know your professors, going up after class if you have questions, that sort of thing, to really let them know who you are, and then hopefully in the end they can write you a stellar reference.
That's a good one, and I've written references for people before too. And I think that's an important one, because you can't just meet someone in a week and say, hey, can you be my reference?
Yeah.
So that takes some planning too, to work with someone
sure.
to demonstrate yourself to that person so they can write about you.
Yeah.
And is that why you're on the show, to get references? Oh, no, wait, you guys are already in medical. You need references for residency.
Okay, so those are the top 5. Any honorable mentions, things that are important but maybe didn't make the top 5?
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions is once you kind of hopefully get that threshold and get that interview, it's working on your interview skills.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You had a good one. Pray to your God.
Pray. Also pray.
Because it does take some luck, especially now that some of them have gone to random selection.
Yep.
You just, you know.
And I think about the interviews, I think talking to someone that's already done the interviews, maybe if you have a friend or a family member, someone that you know that's gone through the process, say, hey, when they asked me this question, it really rattled me. I never thought that that would be asked. Because when you're standing there and it's just blank and quiet and you hear the crickets and you're under some of them are very tight time constraints. You want to have some organized thoughts ahead of time and say, well, listen, if they ask me about this, like, you know, strengths, weaknesses, all the typical ones, but also some maybe off the path ones.
Yeah, the classic ones. What's your weakness? My
Yeah,
weakness is I have no weakness.
None of the weaknesses. I'm a workaholic.
I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah, perfection.
My weakness is I'm so good. Let's say, right? All those cliched ones.
Yeah.
I think one other honorable mention is don't give up. If you don't get in your first try, med
Because lots of people don't.
Yeah. Med school's there next year. Try again.
Yeah.
So if you're applying to med school, have a backup plan so that you can have something to do.
Yep.
In case you don't get in, and then you can come back at it another year. That would be one of my honorable mentions.
I think the other thing for me too is don't take it personally. Unfortunately, like there are lots of really smart, really qualified people that don't get in.
The luck.
Right? There's a little bit of a luck component or timing or whatever. So don't take that personally because lots of really smart, qualified people don't get in.
Yeah, just go be a doctor anyways.
Yeah,
No,
just say
can't do
I didn't. Yeah, no, you can't. But I think it's important. Don't take it personally. That's awesome. That's an awesome summary. Hopefully we can help somebody today.
Yeah, hopefully we help someone. Leave some comments.
Yep.
Anybody who's applied to medical school, or if would be interested in some comments.
Yeah, or if you're applying right now, or you just recently applied, or just had interviews or whatever, leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Or if you need a reference, Brad will write it for you.
Yeah, that'd be
Or just write it, Brad will sign it.
That's right. Don't do that. Okay, now you know. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to our channel.
And remember, you are in charge of your own health.
And thanks to our guests. Thanks for joining us today, guys. It's really helpful.
Thank you, guys.
See you next time.